I'm Herminia Ibarra, Professor of Organizational Behavior at INSEAD, and I'd like to welcome to our campus Nia Joynson-Romanzina, Head of Diversity and Inclusion at Swiss Re, the global reinsurance company. Welcome, Nia.
Thank you very much.
So just to get us started, I'd love to hear about what you've been doing in the diversity and inclusion space at Swiss Re. It sounds like you've got a pretty unique approach, something that really works on including both men and women in the dialogue and in implementing new ways of working. Tell us about what you're trying to do and how you've gone about it.
Right, so I started doing this about 3.5 years ago, and certainly wasn't the first to start on this journey. And when I started, I really deep dived into the topic to find out as much as I could. I spoke to all our executive committee members and our group management board members. It became very clear that we were divided in two camps. It was either we have to get more women in leadership. The dialogue was not about gender diversity or gender balance, it was about women into leadership positions. And the other camp was, if this is all about women, count me out. And I thought, goodness. So it's a very polarizing topic. However, there was a red thread that everybody agreed on, and that was their commitment to diversity of thought and opinion. And that was something that really brought everybody together and evolved naturally into a discussion around inclusion. Our strategy is firmly based in inclusion, and it's based on a philosophy that our goal is to achieve diversity of thought and opinion, and that diversity is a richness of the combination of visible and invisible diversity. Now, what does that mean? It means that each one of us is actually diverse. If you think of an iceberg model, that as a mirror of what diversity is, you have what you can see, the visible diversity, physical appearance, gender physicality, physical disabilities, age. And then you have that plethora, that wealth of facets that you can't see, but each one of us has and makes each one of us who we are today. So when we talk about true diversity, it's about how can each one of us bring our individual selves to the workplace.
You're trying to change a culture so that it becomes more inclusive. Culture change is a long haul kind of process. It takes a while, but on the other hand, people want to see, is the needle moving in terms of representation of different groups, for example, women at different levels. Now, you've told me that you don't think that's necessarily the way to measure success, at least now. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, we don't use numbers as a measure of success. It's an indicator, but we leave it at that. It concerns me that when you set numbers, that it becomes a superficial race to achieve those numbers. So any achievement has a risk of being very superficial. So if you ask some people, okay, so how are you doing in terms of diversity? And inevitably they start talking about women. We've got a woman on the board. Great, fantastic, but what does that mean? It means you have one woman on the board, but if she leaves for whatever reason, then what?
On the topic of smashing stereotypes, I think the world has become aware of these unconscious biases that can be so insidious, but what's been harder is to figure out a way to get past awareness to actually doing something about them. And you've mentioned to me that sometimes some very simple guidelines, some very simple measures can make all the difference.
One of the things that I've noticed is very frequently managers and leaders, they just don't know what to do. And they need a roadmap. Recently, I was part of a dialogue that we had created with some of our executive leaders, where one leader shared with another this very small, what we like to refer to as a gender nudge, which was about project teams. And the nudge was this simple. When you have a project team, I look at the composition of the team, and if I see that the gender balance isn't where I think it should be, now I don't have a fixed number, this person said, but I can tell when the balance is not right. I give the project team back, the composition list back, and I say, come back when you have a better gender balance. And they always do. And that's just so simple.
One of the areas that has been a huge barrier to getting more diversity in the workplace has been the way we work. The lack of flexibility in workplace practices, the rigidity in how we go about things. One of your efforts has been in this area. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, it's a global initiative that I'm extremely proud of, and it's called Own the Way You Work. living team spirit, which is a cultural change initiative. It's about creating an environment where as teams we can shape how, when and where we work. We have 4 basic building blocks for this initiative. The first one is one size does not fit all. So, you know, some people might like to follow the traditional working model where they're in the office from, I don't know, 8 till 6. And they want to have a clear divide between work and private life. And then there are others who like the complete opposite extreme, that they like to have a full integration, one overflowing into the others, and they might want to start working at 6 a.m. and then go to the gym at 10 and then start working in the afternoon or even work late at night. What's important is that, you know, your work has to be central to this. The second piece is work smarter, not longer. So it's really about measuring by results and not the time that you spend sitting at your desk.
No FaceTime.
No FaceTime. I'm not saying FaceTime is not good in the sense of, you know, there are some discussions which really just work better when you're face to face, right? But that can't be a point of measurement. The third one is it's about the team, not the individual. And then it comes to the fourth pillar, which feeds into that, which it's about trust, transparency, respect. If I know what you're doing, how you're doing it, where you're doing it, what are your preferences, how do you work, I will have greater trust that you're pulling your weight in the team. And if you know the same about me, then we can work. I understand what makes you tick. You understand what makes me tick. I know that I can trust you. And that transparency really fosters much better team dynamic.
So many people today are obsessed with selling the business case for diversity and inclusion on the basis of correlations between the number of people that you have of a certain category and a financial result, for example, ROI. And there's a search to find even better and better numbers to prove that you get a benefit out of diversity. How do you think about that at Swiss Re?
Personally, I believe the business case is not going to change anybody's minds. I believe it's a delaying tactic. People either get it or they don't. I think it's a lot more about long-term thinking. It's about sustainability. It's about if we still want to be successful in 20, 30, 40 years from now, we have to start doing something today to get the best talent into the company. If you think of a lake and it's full of talent, why would we be fishing through only half of that lake? It just doesn't make sense. It's not sustainable. So I would say leave the business case aside and really focus on what matters and the success of the company.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.